hostess for today. I'll let Artie introduce herself after. So this is the student track. Originally I had planned to have a careers panel that talked about different careers in InfoSec, and between Christmas and last week, my panel was canceled. So I reached out to my friend because she's, I guess, branching out on a new initiative. Actually, you should probably describe what you do regularly plus this initiative. And so we thought it would be really relevant to you guys to talk about, well, first of all, career and security in general, and more importantly about mentoring. So how do you develop your career? So like, I assume most of you guys are students. So my experience working with students into the InfoSec industry is most of the educational institutions today don't really focus on information security as a career. It's kind of a supplementary track, or options that you can take in classes as like sort of a sidebar. You get a degree in programming or whatever you decide to do. So a lot of times when I'm looking to hire entry-level positions, they don't have a ton of practical experience in the security field. So we do a lot of internal development and training and so forth. So that kind of led me on a journey where I started mentoring and working with the educational institutions to try to get more security focus into the program. So I guest lecture a couple times a year at UBC in the network engineering track, specifically on security. Also at SFU, I'm trying to get into PCIT because they've invited me to guest lecture, so we're trying to work out kind of what we would talk about and how we fit in with their program. And then I'm just starting to go talk to high schools now. So believe it or not, grade 9s and 10s are trying to figure out what they want to do, and because there's such a big shortage in resources technically in this marketplace, particularly here in Vancouver, but I think pretty pervasively across the country, I'm trying to get them really young now. So I'm stepping up my game. So today we're going to talk about a couple things. I'll let you introduce yourself first, and then turn my chair.
So I'm Artie Gadia. I am the regional sales manager, so my full-time job. I work at Carbon Black as pretty much just selling security or endpoint security to Western Canada, so to organizations, helping them secure their organization, keeping their customers' data safe.
I'm customer advanced.
Yeah. But unlike you, my degree, if I go back, I didn't study anything to do security related. So I studied financial economics. I wanted to be a stockbroker and go work in the financial sector. So that was my background. So I come from a completely different background than most of you here in the room.
I also didn't take security, I took math. And just a couple weeks ago showed someone how to do a base 2 logarithmic calculation to determine the entropic value of a password.
Yeah.
So math does come in handy. They actually stared at me with their mouths hanging open for most of the time. I think in disbelief that I actually knew how to do it, and secondly, that I actually knew what to do as far as calculating that out.
Yeah, in fact, I still remember when I moved into this country, and I didn't, when the first job that I got an offer for, and they said, hey, you'll have to take a step back in your career, because I moved from England as I was working there, and I was new as a new immigrant here. And they were like, hey, it's a security firm. And I'm like, well, what do they do? And they're like, antivirus. And I was like, oh, I know that, for our computers. That's as far as I knew. I didn't know what a server was. I didn't know what any of the language that you learn. I had no idea back in 2004. So it was definitely not my background. But I learned. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure whatever industry I go in, you're going to constantly learn something new. And there's a lot of different avenues within the space that you can get into, like whether it's cybersecurity sales or as an engineer, or like how Joanne's doing, and you can get into leadership roles. This is a huge, broad area that you can get into. When it comes
Forensics,
yeah, threat hunting, yeah.
So many opportunities, and you don't really talk about any of this in school. So how do you figure out, I don't know what you guys think, because we want it to be a little interactive. What do you think out in your side of the fence, being either in school or maybe in your first job, about where you're gonna go next. Like, do you even think about it, or just try to get by what you're doing, sort of thing? So that's a little bit of background about us. We're gonna talk, I guess, about some exciting things that RT's doing. Let's start with a little bit of history and the vision of what you see and where this is gonna go.
Yeah, so as a sideline, while I'm working full-time, looking at my journey in terms of, and Joanne and I were just talking about this, many times I'm like, I wish what I knew today, I wish I knew it like 10 years back, right? And, being a new immigrant, didn't have a network, a different culture as well, I was very shy, I was taught that, when you go into the workplace, you do as you're told, and you wait for your promotion. So you don't ask for a promotion. So I started trying to find my journey as, why am I not climbing up the ladder? How do I climb up that ladder? What should I be doing differently, especially coming from born and raised in Kenya, and then worked and studied in UK, where they had a reserved culture, then come to Canada, where it's all about networking. And I was like, okay, I need to start learning how can I climb up that ladder? And it took me 10 years to figure that out. But I started learning about connecting the networking side of things, just what you did earlier. Hey, let's exchange cards. I'm interested. This is what I'm interested in. You don't put yourself out there. The other people or other people in your network, we never know. Even within an organization, people wouldn't know what you're really trying to achieve. You have to speak out. You have to try and stand out, because there's so many people in the same boat. So how do you make yourself stand out? And I started researching and trying to figure out, what could I do differently, and how can I stand out? And I actually became a mentee. My previous manager, he came up to me and said, hey, you know what, you've got great potential, I'd like to mentor you. And I was like, sure, I don't know what mentoring is at that time, but I'm like, sure, I will take that. And I thought it was coaching, and coaching and mentoring is totally two different things. And as a result, he started mentoring me. I found, and when he reached his capacity, he handed me over to somebody else who could then take me further a step back. And along the way, I started learning, because mentoring is not about getting your promotion, but it's about learning and developing yourself and having someone else as a sounding board.
It's like forging your own path.
Yeah, because you have control to your own path, right? You have control to your own career, right? And sometimes you may not know what it is, but somebody else can see or help light that spark in you, right? So this is kind of where, by having mentors internal to the organization as well as outside, finding people outside the organization, because sometimes it's not always safe to, you have someone, your manager internally, you might not be able to talk about everything. So I started seeking out and looking for people outside. And I could see over the 18 months what happened to my journey and what opportunities came across and how I was able to develop myself. And then just last year is when, I started looking at this and I'm like, well, I've learned a lot, but there's so many individuals who are also in my situation that would like to follow the same path, the same journey. And as a result, I started a company just recently in December, and it's called Stand Out to Lead. So the website is so2l.com. And it's about finding out if someone has an issue or a problem, something they want to develop, let's try and fix it. Let's try and help each other out, right? The idea behind this is, how do we help each other in order to, it's that community, you've got to build a strong community. How can, if you know someone that's trying to get somewhere, how can you help them, right? And that's what this whole mentoring program is, Stand Out to Lead. We're starting off with some workshops, but the idea behind that is we're going to be building, and Joanne here volunteered to help me, which is great. Go back to your network. Who else can help you, right? I had somebody within my network that built my website, right? So reach out to your network, ask for help, but most importantly, find a mentor. Figure out how you can find a mentor who can help you grow in your own career journey.
So I've discovered, there's coaching and mentoring, like you said. So coaching is kind of what I do as a manager of people every day. I coach them in their job based on the experiences that I've had in my own career and what I've learned. So I'll coach them on, we're going to move down a path of working on this new process. And this is what I know worked before, so you guide people down that path and coach them into developing a new tool or process. Mentoring is a little different because mentoring is not really about telling them what their path is. Mentoring is about leading them on a collaborative journey to almost trick them into seeing it themselves. So I've personally been mentored since the very beginning of my career, right when I finished university. I worked for an SVP at Scotiabank. He saw something in me. His last name was Wing. He actually took me under his wing. And, 30 plus years later, he's actually still my mentor. So I recently moved to Van City. He's actually the tipping point that helped me make the decision to move from one company to the other. He's still my go-to person this long into my career. I also have 2 other mentors that I've accumulated over my years that were also at one time my bosses and were coaching me through my career, and now have actually become career mentors for me and continue to stay connected with me. We talk regularly, and when I say regularly, I'll say at least every 90 days. We have a phone call, email exchange all the time. So, I've been mentored my whole career. So probably about 10 years ago, one of my mentors told me it was time to give back. So I started mentoring. So Stand Out to Lead is something that was really kind of near and dear to me personally. And, I think is an opportunity for those of us that have been mentored to give back and sort of help drive other people's careers. I have 3 mentees. One of them is a recent graduate in their first job. The other 2 mentees are in their second jobs. I started mentoring them when they were in their first jobs. So I also have 4 children between 21 and 25. I don't mentor them. That's someone else's job. I mom them. I don't even coach them because they don't want to listen to me anyway. So you see kind of the different roles you play in different aspects of your life and how you give back. And I joke and I say I don't mentor my kids, but they do ask for my advice. And all 4 of my children have mentors of their own that are helping them on their own journeys as they move through their careers. So I think it's something that's really benefited me in a really tangible way. So trying to help other people do the same thing is actually really important to me. So okay, so let's move on a little bit. So we talked about mentoring. You talked a little bit about your platform on how we're getting the message out with the website. You want to talk a little bit about the workshops, maybe?
Yeah, so for those of you, if you look on so2l.com, that's the website. So the first one is a website. The first one is a workshop that we're helping empower women who are interested in getting on corporate boards. So that's the first one. And there'll be a series of several different workshops. Other workshops will how to be a mentor, how to, as a mentee, how to maximize the most out of your mentor. What's the program that you can, what's the method that you can use? Because it's entirely up to you and your whole journey, right? So the first one is actually coming up during International Women's Week, and that's like a half day course. We have, again, going back and utilizing a network, the woman who used to sit on the Sears board, she's facilitating that that workshop. So that's basically where Joanne and I were like, okay, we'll start looking at our network, who's interested in joining in and participating in this workshop. And it all actually, the idea came out from just a couple of people in our network saying, hey, my next move in my career is that we would like to get onto a corporate board, right? I knew I was interested. I knew that maybe in 2-3 years' time I would like to be there, but I have to start planning now. Because if you don't plan now and if you wait till the time you're ready, you might not have all the qualifications. So you have to start looking and projecting yourself like 3-5 years. And again, same thing, I learned that from my mentor. Start looking at 5 years, where do you want to be? And then start planning what you want to do. And so I knew, well, I want to be on a corporate board in 3 to 5 years, but I need to know what I need to do today in order to be there.
To position yourself.
Yeah, position myself successfully. And then I become the obvious choice versus how historically, I remember I would apply for jobs, I wouldn't get it, I wouldn't get promotions, and I'm like, why can I not do that? You have to make sure you prepare yourself so you become the obvious choice.
I see a lot of like people coming out of the universities, and while there's co-op and different programs, I often feel that the schools don't really adequately prepare the students, and I see this in my own kids as they're exiting school, for the complicated life of getting a job and living. So like my oldest daughter just graduated this past year from a major in biochemistry and a minor in microbiology. Super smart young woman. Could not get a job. Literally for 6 months tried to get a job, and exactly like you were saying was going to interviews and doing resumes. And I looked at her resume, I helped her develop it and improve it. She had a great resume. She was a co-op student. She was doing stem cell research with BC Cancer Agency. So she had great experience on her resume. Turns out she is terrible at interviewing. So unlike her mother, she's very shy, and I think like I was probably very similar to that back in the day, but I think she was getting super nervous at interviews or whatever. So I asked another colleague if he would meet with her and mentor her, and basically all they did was interview preparation, and he was giving her like guidance and giving her these little exercises to do. And the first job she went and applied for after, working with my colleague for a couple months, she got like a job. So it's not her dream job, but it's good. It's a good job. It's getting her good experience. It's going to open her to other opportunities. And I think organizations like this are going to lead us down a path and make it more available to, the workforce that's coming to get that step up.
Yeah.
It's really, really a big gap. I think, this is the year of the woman, so it's all about like women in business and stuff. But I think it's a unilateral gap. It has no gender bias. I don't think men or women are getting this kind of experience out of school. You guys come out of school super smart, you're still really challenged about getting a job and getting the connections, and these events are good about mentoring. Like Paige gave me her business card. She has a business card and she's on LinkedIn. Most of the students that I interviewed for entry-level positions don't even have a LinkedIn profile. Like the business card is just taking it to a whole other level. Like these are just, they seem really small things, but they're actually really important things that we see, like as people that have been around for a long time, are missing today. So interactive.
I just have a question for you. So there's a labor shortage. We know that. We've got young people coming out of, we're on the recruitment side, coming out of
You're my favorite people.
School. And so how do we close the gap? We got people that need jobs. We have employers that can't hire people. It seems like there should be an easy solution about how we facilitate that. And so just be curious, having come through this industry and navigated different ways, which probably wasn't simple. How do we tighten that gap? How do we close it completely?
Yeah.
I just think that there must be a way, and potentially your daughter's a great example of that. The co-op led into an internship that led into a permanent position. Like the fact that she has fulfilled and demonstrated capability in the role, the fact that you have to clear through an interview and you just got the qualifications, obviously. She then has the experience in the organization. Is that potentially where the barrier is, that we're not actually creating that pipeline for kids to come up through that? And then they might go somewhere else, but we're not, we talk about hiring out of the last panel about fit, right? Forget the other stuff. We don't know, with public service, we don't hire for fit's part of it for sure, but we have our checklist of criteria.
Sure.
Yeah, any thoughts around that? How we might do a better job?
I think we can both speak.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first and talk about your perspective?
Let's hear it.
So for me, my perspective, I couldn't get jobs either, right? Because I studied financial economics, right? But I knew behind the scene, I was always doing sales. And that's how I got into cybersecurity. I didn't have any background into that, but it's the opportunity of knowing what talent or what your strength is. And you don't have to necessarily only go into that path. I didn't necessarily need to go into stock market, right? Knowing I can still do sales in cybersecurity, right? Or be a sales engineer in cybersecurity. There's so many different roles, and many times some of these roles are not even known, and they are open positions. So it's getting that awareness that there's a whole load of different options within this sector that people can get into. So I think that, in my opinion, that there's that gap in awareness because people just think, okay, maybe network security is what I'm aware of, and that's it. There's a lot more. And once you get into an organization through a different path, you get to learn a different side to it, and you can always cross over, right? And many people, in fact, even in cybersecurity, there was a woman who was in HR and she wanted to shadow. She didn't have any experience. This is from Finning. She didn't have any experience, and she liked it. She shadowed it. She's like, you know what, I can do this. And she went out and got some standard publications and got into that. I think there's a gap in awareness of how broad this sector is and how many different options there are. That's where I feel the gap is. Because even many times we're trying to find an engineer, we can't find an engineer, right? So there's a gap, but people don't realize there's a career in sales, cybersecurity sales. Or like my engineer at the back, Terry. He came from Finning. Same
No
thing.
pressure, Terry.
You know, we found him. He wasn't going to work for a manufacturer, but after connecting with him and making him realize there's this other path that he can go through. That's what my 2 cents is. How could we shorten that? Is more awareness of what other career options there are within this field.
Which would start with post-secondary, I would assume, about them really ensuring that kids know what the options are. And from our side, it's coming into job fairs and saying, within that, we offer these potential 5 streams that, and understanding transferable skills from different strengths and where we can pull them in.
The transferable skills is key, but there's one other aspect. So I worked at Best Buy for 10 years, I was at a software company for 2, and then I just moved to Van City. So all 3 of those organizations have exactly the same problem from a hiring perspective at bringing resources in. So as a critical thinker and being because I mainly do security and forensics work, so you're definitely a critical thinker, you're always trying to see the logic in things. For me, it's been my personal experience that I would prefer to build my team on entry-level positions and train them up. And first and foremost, that's because I get good fit, because that's really what I'm interviewing for, because they don't have the skills. I know I have to train. The second thing is they don't have any bad habits. I either want right out of school or I want 10 years of experience. That gap in between, almost in my mind, equates to lazy. So the middle part of your career, you really got to put the pedal to the floor and to escalate yourself so that you don't get stale and you don't just look at what's happening in your organization to say this is how it's done, because there's a lot of different out there depending on where you are. And then the third biggest challenge I've had at all 3 organizations is they were all not typical organizations that they didn't want to use recruiting firms. They had their own internal HR, and you kind of get what you pay for. So the HR people would post internally first, and then they would post externally through insufficient, job boards or whatever, instead of collaborating with people that are actually out in the marketplace. And so we turned that around at Best Buy by starting to work with recruiters, because they actually know the industry, particularly when we had specialist roles. But it was actually really successful at entry level. So I'm a really big fan of internships, co-op, work term. I prefer co-op because they're usually paid. Like often internships are unpaid or really low paid. So I think that, again, I'm a big believer that you get what you pay for. There's value when somebody's rewarded for something, and I don't work for free, so why should I expect someone else to work for free? So I prefer the co-op model, and I'm a fairly structured person, so I like to make sure that I'm getting the most out of it, and that the person I'm working with is also getting the most out of it. I try to use that approach for everything. I'm big at developing people. one of my team sitting at the back of the room here, Flavia, you can wave to everybody. Flavia is undertaking all kinds of new challenges and working with me in the last 3 months, and you can ask her, some of the things have not been successful. She's struggling and learning in new areas, and is undergoing a difficult transition because I'm actually throwing stuff at her and intentionally letting her figure it out. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but you learn the most from your mistakes and from putting yourself out there and connecting with people. So, you know, the whole HR bridge and you know, how you relay that into, you know, starter jobs. I've had fantastic success. I have a very young team at Van City, and I'm 100% confident that they're going to do great things in the next 2 years as we develop our program. But again, I'm in the same problem due to an organization that doesn't work with external. And it's a problem, so I'm being pretty loud, and you know, I've been told, they've used the word aggressive at trying to get them to expand what their horizons are. So Van City runs a coaching program internally. I mean, my third weekend, they made me go to new managers training. I was the only person that had actually worked with direct reports before in a group of 30 people that were there. And it was really interesting training. And then they assigned a coach to me. So I've been mentored and coached my entire career. So it was actually a really interesting experience because I had more experience than the person that was coaching me. But I actually got quite a bit out of our sessions from a personal perspective because it sort of turned the ball on its axis and made me look at things a different way and reminded me that I don't know everything, that there's still a lot of things to learn. So I think of all of these things as opportunities. This today is a big opportunity just to, you know, meet up with students and build up my own network to, you know, like I have business cards on hand, I'm not to anybody who's looking for jobs. I definitely want to be on your LinkedIn profile, and I want you to contact me. Like, Artie's the same. I moved here in 2000, and I think we met in 2001 or something.
Yeah,
That way, a long time ago. A lot of this is about networking and developing. So, does anybody else have any questions?
I just had a quick question. I know you hire a lot of younger folks, and earlier on in my career, one of the tough things was some of my managers that would hire me would want me to kind of stick around, and there's almost kind of this like culture where if you leave, like I'm going to kind of like dismanage you, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of curious from your perspective how you deal with that kind of managing up, like in terms of like some of your VPs and things like that, like in terms of being able to actually hire younger staff. Like, do you get pushback on that to be like, oh, you should be hiring seasoned veterans so they stick around and all that?
Well, Flavia,
Yes.
she's a good person to talk to you about that after, but like I don't know how it is at Carbon Black, but when I moved to Van City, I had an interim manager in the role. He was actually somebody that I'd worked with for many years at Best Buy, so we knew each other quite well. And you know, my boss was adamant, you don't have to hire this guy, you pick your own manager or whatever. Honestly, I've had very little experience in my life where I couldn't work and create something fantastic by partnering with other people. I think it's more about positive attitude and, you know, what you're willing to put into it, what they're willing to put into it. I am not really a micromanager per se. Not that I want to set people up for failure, but the most successes that I've had in my own personal career have been based on my biggest failures, things that didn't work out. So Flavia's learning that lesson because I've thrown some pretty complicated things at her, and she's figuring out what it's going to look like. I am not getting a lot of pushback because at the end of the day, my boss only cares that I deliver and that my team delivers and that what we deliver rolls up into the bigger plan organizationally. I see Van City's very proactive. That actual, like I'm super old there. Like I don't know, like Carbon Black, like age-wise, it seems
Majority
like
are in the 20 to 30 range.
yeah. So you know, I'm like an old mom there. There's a lot of younger people there. I actually find it very uplifting and energizing. So there's great opportunities at different companies your career, but I can't stress enough that you have to do a lot of the work yourself. Having a mentor is not gonna, they're not gonna do the work for you. My mentors didn't do the work for me. They sort of nudged me and encouraged me and kind of gave me the opportunity to self-realize different paths that were open to me, but they never pushed me down one path or another. So, and I think we're not trying to force it with other people, we're trying to make the opportunity available. I'm super excited to participate in Marty's vision, so.
Yeah, because the idea back again is, create a network, but sometimes you only have a certain network. How do you make sure you find a mentor from outside your network that you could, like in my case, I was looking to start up this business, and I needed to get a mentor who has already successfully done that several times. I don't know that many CEOs or entrepreneurs, right? So that's where I went looking for it, right? And that's why this platform will help you find the right mentor that's outside your network, and that you can openly share and have conversations like your question, how do I go about this? Or, and they won't give you the answer exactly to what Joanne said, but they'll make you think a different angle to it, right? And just brainstorm ideas and things like that.
You should use your dating app.
Yeah. So I know, I was waiting to get
She told me this the other day, and it's just really stuck with me.
Yeah, so it's the platform that we're building will be like a dating app. So it's very much, it's funny because I said to Joanne, I haven't seen a dating app like in forever. So I actually started going out to allmatch.com and all these different dating sites and trying to figure out the model. But that's what it is. It's like a dating app. You're finding your life partner, but this is your lifetime mentor who's going to, it's not a coach that's going to help you with that small issue. It's a lifetime mentor that's going to help you cross with your journey. And that's basically what it is. And, we were talking and we were joking about it, what the ending is, unlike with dating. Different ending there, but in this is a very positive ending because it's being invested back into you and your career and your path and where you're going to go forward up. Up or lateral, doesn't matter. Wherever you're going into your career journey, that's what it is.
Yeah, so, does anyone else have questions? Or I know we're getting down to like the last few minutes, so
Yeah, no, I just want to say, Joanne, you said something earlier that stuck out with me. It's the difference between a coach and a mentor. And when you said that the mentor will make you see something that you couldn't see yourself, that's how I differentiate the two. Where it's a two-way street. A coach or a boss can say, hey, here's our objective, and it'll coach you on the tools you need to get there. But if you're open with your mentor and say, this is what makes me tick, what excites me, and then your mentor will help you, give you the confidence to help you get there. So I think that really, I just want to share that.
yeah, like today as Flavia's boss, I coach her on a regular basis on what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, she and I and our team are accountable for delivering. So I have to make sure that happens. But I've had multiple conversations with her that I'd love to try to help her find a mentor to help her develop her career. And if I wasn't her boss, I could be that mentor, but it's difficult to bridge the two gaps. It's important to keep some separation, and it's also important for her developing her career to have that, I don't know, would you call it neutral discussion territory? That she can talk to you, like, if she's having, troubles at work or whatever, she might not want to talk to me about that right away, right? So I, like I've said to everyone on my team, I'd love to help them find mentors out there, either through a program like this. I mean, sometimes you have a mentor for a period in time, a year or two or whatever, and other times you have it for your whole life like I have. I think it really depends on you and how your career goes individually, and I'm a very connected person. I tend to not drop my connections, but as people move through their lives, life changes, right? Like you've stuck with your mentor too, so we're, I think, a bit unique. I see more change over. I've had my 3 mentees, 2 of them for about 6 years, and 1 just for the last couple of years. And so far, we meet regularly. I don't even see any end in sight to that. So it looks like those are turning out to be longer-term relationships. So, but again, getting a mentor is not the easiest thing in the world, but using your network to stay connected and connect with us. We know lots of people. You know, HR, resources, like it's a great, you're looking for resources. I have tons of recruiters on my LinkedIn, and they regularly tap me on the shoulder, say, I have a job, you know, for this level, for this experience, specifically if it's like cybersecurity related, because I know a lot of people and I can usually connect them with someone across many cities across Canada. I'm invested in doing that because it makes our industry better.
Like, how many of you have a mentor today?
It's awesome.
Yeah. And within your own network or outside your network? At an organization?
Like, is it somebody that you're working with?
It's a friend,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
not somebody that I know.
yeah, that's what I would consider a real mentor. I think within the workplace, it generally tends to be more coaching
Yeah.
in nature, so, and honestly, it's like, I didn't really understand the difference between coaching and mentoring initially. They are two very different animals, so, and both have a very specific purpose. There's not, one is not right over the other, they just have different end games, so depending on, you know, where you're trying to get to, it does make a difference. So, I've had, you know, my boss is a fantastic coach, so I spend a lot of time talking about coaching and how do I handle things and how do I approach it at density because it's a different environment. It moves very slowly, I'm not used to it. Yeah, I put too much pressure on it by being very demanding to do things instantly. So, you know, stuff like that, that's like kind of more coaching and mentoring. So. Anyways,
Yeah.
I have business cards. I'm happy to connect. I'm easy to find. Artie's the same. She's actually very responsive for a salesperson.
Very true. And for those of you, like, once this platform is built, it's still going to be on that so2l.com. So probably by March timeframe, that platform's going to be built. It's going to be an app that will give you access. Exactly like a dating site that we're building up, helping you connect. And you can say, hey, I like this person, I like their passion, I like their background. I think you can learn something and will help you connect with them. They're the ones who are willing to put, they're signing on to this because they want to give back. So this is a great way for you to find someone that's not in your own network or within your own organization as a mentor. It's helping you get that outside experience from somebody outside that has, you know, whether you're looking for, like in my case, I was looking for an entrepreneur. I wasn't looking for a VP or whatever that position was. I was looking for someone who's done that, right, to help me in creating this organization, right? But again, he didn't tell me what to do. It was just, he lit that spark that he was a sounding board that made me realize what I needed to do. So yeah, just you know, keep a lookout on that. Right now, there's only a workshop right now for that, but by March timeframe, you'll start seeing on the website the platform and be ready.
Yeah. Any feedback? We're happy to have it.
Yeah, we love feedback. If there's something you don't like about that platform, you want us to change, we're open to that. We're here to learn from each other at the end of